Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning, and please now take a note. We'd like to advise all our viewers that the following discussion is of a mature nature. The concern over the rights and health of sex workers here in South Africa has been receiving intensified focus of late, as the recent ruling of the South African Law Reform Commission has seen the criminalized status of sex work remain so putting the health and well-being of these workers in jeopardy. And here from the TB/HIV Care Association to discuss how to understand why this ruling causes concern amongst human rights activists are Dr. Laureen Boyens and the Key Populations Program Manager, and Yolande Andrews, a sex worker site manager here in Cape Town. Ladies, thank you so much. I could see you both nodding your heads when I was talking about that ruling. This is a very controversial subject, understandably so. Why do we need to be so interested in this particular conversation in the care of the health of our sex workers here in South Africa? Maybe put that to you, Doc.
So I think that our opinion would be that health is a basic human right, and it shouldn't,
regardless of who you are.
For sure, it shouldn't matter what you do for a living. But it's not only important from the human rights perspective, it's also important from the public health perspective. South Africa is a country that has one of the highest rates of HIV in the world, and we all know that the common transmission of HIV happens through sexual intercourse. So sex workers are particularly vulnerable in terms of both contracting HIV, but also potentially transmitting HIV if the necessary precautions are not taken. So I think it's important to make an impact on the HIV epidemic in South Africa by looking after the healthcare needs of vulnerable people such as sex workers.
Such an obvious entry point to deal with the issue on a much larger scale, and that's exactly what you guys do at the TB HIV Care Association. How does your work engage with sex workers? Give me a kind of rundown of what you guys do.
Well, I mean, there's very few organizations that deal with key populations such as sex workers. So TB HIV Care is in terms of perfect, because we have strong support from the Department of Health as well as our funders, PEPFAR and Global Fund, in terms of providing a comprehensive health services. So one of the things that we do focus on is HIV testing, TB screening, STI testing, treatment as well if you have any symptoms, and then other primary healthcare services that they may not necessarily want to access from other facilities, such as family planning, pap smears. And then we are very fortunate that we can provide as well ARV treatment for those that are HIV positive to keep their viral loads down and make it less likely for them to transmit. But also we are now initiating PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is an ARV treatment that they can actually take on a daily basis to minimize their risk of contracting HIV. And if sex workers are actually knowing what their rights are in terms of their health and their social well-being, less likely that this will spill over negatively to our communities.
And I suppose you're also starting a process of empowerment that might take them down a different path altogether, which is an incredibly powerful part of this. Maybe the legislation doesn't help in combating the stigmatization that is attached to that, but the public does have a role to play here. Doctor, what do we need to do? How do we weigh in on this very complex situation?
I think it's important for the general public domain to understand that if sex workers are stigmatized, criminalized, or if they're discriminated against, it's very difficult for them to access healthcare services. They function within the greater community. They may have partners and children, and their clients may also have partners and children. So if their healthcare needs are not addressed, this will obviously affect the greater community. So I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to watch our own response to vulnerable populations. We need to really start being insightful and empowering ourselves with knowledge, and we need to treat our vulnerable populations with dignity, with respect, and with greater understanding. I think we also need to really start reporting human rights violations and supporting reports of such violations within the communities that we operate in when we see that sex workers are being discriminated against, and also to support organizations such as TB HIV Care and others that really work to the benefit and in the interest of sex workers.
We're going to put all of your contact details on our website. We'll try and direct as many people towards you as possible. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I know this is what you do every day, so thank you so much for the efforts that you're putting in there as well. Hopefully this in some part starts to shift the way that people think and the way that we approach the most vulnerable members of our society. But ladies, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. We hope the discussion has helped to enlighten you at home that while we may not agree with the work that they do, we still do need to protect these members of our society. To find out more about the work that TB HIV Care does, as well as how you can help, you can visit tbhivcare.org.